Kiive Audio just released a major update to their analog tape plugin, Tape Face. So today we're going to look at Tape Face 2022. We're going to talk about tape in general, and we're going to run this plugin through its paces, so hopefully it'll help you figure out if this plugin is right for you or not. So let's go. Hey everyone, today we're going to look at Tape Face 2022. But before that, let's just talk about tape plugins in general. Why use tape plugins? Well, one of the things that we figured out when we started recording audio digitally is that it sounded very, very different from recording to tape. And the main differences are tape has a sound, it has a character, it has some natural compression happening, it has some natural saturation happening, and also depending on the tape machine you're using, it can definitely add a warmth and a thickness to the sound. So I love to use tape plugins anytime where I have a digital source that sounds cold, it sounds lifeless, it doesn't sound three-dimensional, and I want to breathe some life back into it. Another reason I might use it is just to give it some nice saturation. So anytime something is just sounding lifeless and cold and sterile, that's a great time to try a tape plugin and see if you can breathe some of that life back into the source. So this is Tape Face 2022, and I'll just go through some of the settings here, and you're going to get to hear these settings in action today. But first, you'll notice that there's 3 different types of tape, and when you switch the tape, you can notice that the color actually changes of the tape there on the bottom. You have input and output. Now I've discovered that this really can change the sound in great ways when you drive this input. So there is a link mode, so as you drive the input, it's taking down the output, and you can really get some nice tape saturation, tape coloration, and tape distortion by driving the input. Also, you can turn the plugin on and off right here. Also, the meter here, you can meter input, but you can also meter gain reduction, which I think that's a great feature. You have 3 different IPS setting right here. You have 7.5, 15, and 30. And you're going to hear that all of them have just a little bit of different character. Usually the lower values are going to sound a little thicker, and the higher values are going to add a little more high-end presence. Also, you have a saturation knob right here, and you have a low boost knob. So most of the time, running something through tape should give you a little bit more bottom end, a little bit more warmth. But if you want to add even more, you can engage this low boost. And this is probably going to be great for like kick drums, bass guitars. If you really want to get more of a boost down on that low end, you can engage this low boost. Then right here, you have a bias knob. You can either be normal or +3. The last 2 settings you have here are stereo width and noise, and I am going to demonstrate the stereo width setting today, so you're going to get a chance to hear that. So the first thing I want to show you Tape Face on is this kick drum. So let me first play this kick. This is the kick without Tape Face, and then I'm going to show you what it sounds like with Tape Face engaged. So definitely it's a little lifeless. I'd love to have a little bit more in the lows. So now what I did was I just put Tape Face in the factory default setting on this purple track. So I'm going to play these back to back, and I did my best to volume match. So listen to these tracks back to back and see if you can hear the difference between the green track and the purple track. So you're going to hear first 4 beats of the non-Tape Face kick drum, and then you'll hear 4 of the Tape Face, and see if you can hear the differences. So there's 2 noticeable things happening here. One is just on the factory default setting, the second kick drum sounds thicker. It sounds thicker in the lows. The other thing I'm picking up on is the second track with Tape Face engaged sounds a little more compressed and even. And that's one thing that tape does naturally, is it naturally kind of compresses anything that you run through it. So let me play that again and see if you hear those differences. There's a little more body in the purple track, and it's a little more compressed sounding. So I'll play that one more time. So now I'm just going to loop this kick drum, and I'm going to adjust the settings on Tape Face so you can hear some of the different settings here. So let's change to 7.5 IPS. Let's turn the saturation up a little bit. Let's engage the low boost. maybe turn the input gain up a little bit, and let's just see what we get. Bypass. In. So it's definitely adding a lot more girth in the lows, and you can hear some compression going on. Next we have a snare drum track, so I'm going to first play that snare dry, and then we're going to play around with some of the settings on tape face. And by the way, this is one of the things that I think tape is really great for. Snares love a little saturation, they love a little boost in the lows, so snares can be a really great thing to use tape on. Okay, so I've went through and I've adjusted these settings. I've added a little bit of input. I added the low boost. I added a lot of saturation. I turned it all the way up to 10, and let's just see the difference. Bypass. In. Bypass. In. So there you go. I added like a little bit of grit to that snare drum, which that can really help snares cut through. A little bit of that grit, that saturation, but it also added a lot of girth to that snare drum. Next, I have a full drum set. So first without tape face. Now I've added a little input here, and I'm really liking the sound of just driving tape face a little bit using the input knob. So I'm driving the input a little bit. I have the IP set on 15, and I have the saturation at 0, but I have the low boost engaged. And now listen to it with tape face in, and I'll pop it in and out. Let's start in bypass. So first bypass. In. Bypass. In. Bypass. In. There you go. Just added so much life to that drum set. And again, this is why tape is so fun to use in the digital realm, is it can just breathe so much dimension and so much life and warmth back into your signals. Next, we have electric guitar. So let me first show you that guitar dry, and then I'll show you what I did with tape face. So it's just kind of this weird, warbly, jangly sound that we used in the bridge for the song that I was working on. But I used tape face to get more grit, more dirt in that sound. So let me start it again. I'll start in bypass, and then I'll pop it in. In. Bypass. In. So you see what I'm saying? It just gave it so much more dimension, and it just made it sound more interesting. Next we have synth bass, so first in bypass. So this time I switched the tape type to tape type 2. I didn't drive the input this time. I'm on 30 IPS. I did engage the low boost, and I have the saturation all the way up. So let me start again in bypass, and I'll show you what it sounded like when we pop it in. In. Bypass. In. Bypass. In. Okay, there you go. And also I should note, I forgot to mention, I turned the stereo width all the way up on that one. So that's why you got a lot more stereo when I engaged the tape face plugin. Next we have a vocal, so first in bypass.
Pulled like a magnet, I've been pulled into your world.
So I like the sound of that, but I definitely want to get more character with a little bit of that tape saturation, tape thickness. So now let me play that vocal track, but this time with the tape face on.
Pulled like a magnet, I've been pulled into your world.
Again in bypass.
Pulled like a magnet, I've been pulled into your world.
Tape face.
Pulled like a magnet, I've been pulled into your world.
Added more thickness, added more excitement, and just made it more fun to listen to. Lastly, I want to show you tape face on a full mix, and this is what a lot of people use tape plugins for, to put it on the mix, to hopefully add a little bit of weight to the mix, maybe some excitement to the mix. Okay, so let me play you this full mix, and this time I'll have it displayed on the screen when the plugin's in and when it's out. Absolutely love what that did to that mix. Added so much weight and girth and just made it sound more interesting, more exciting. And I should mention that I did add a little bit of stereo width on that. So I think in this stereo width setting, 50 is the default setting, which I don't think it is affecting the stereo width. So if you go down from 50, it's going to narrow the stereo width. And if you go up from 50, it's going to widen it. So I think I have it right at around 60. And I really love how it subtly just widened that mix. When I hit bypass, if you go back and listen again, when I hit bypass, you could almost hear the mix like collapse, to where you heard this nice big stereo sound, and when I hit bypass, the mix would almost sound like it would collapse. My one single complaint would be, especially on this stereo width knob, make it so we can actually type in the settings so we know exactly how much we're widening or how much we're narrowing. So there you have it. Hopefully this video is helpful to you, and hopefully that helped you figure out if this tape plugin is the right tape plugin for you. I really enjoyed using it, and I'm excited to keep trying it out and try it on some different sources. If you liked this video, do me a favor, hit that like button. Also, subscribe to this channel and turn on that bell for notifications. I release new videos every single week. Also, if you want to see more of my videos, you can click right here. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.